It was supposed to be 30 days of staged photos, fake kisses, and maybe a little clout until the city started shipping us, and then, unfortunately, we started shipping us too. I always thought the most dramatic thing about my life in Los Angeles would be the parking tickets, but no. The real chaos started the morning. My roommate and best friend Kai barged into my bedroom waving his cracked phone like it was a winning lottery ticket, except he looked horrified instead of happy. I was still half asleep, hair everywhere, wearing an old UCLA shirt when he said, "Lena, we have a problem." And because this is Kai, I automatically assumed something stupid, like he'd accidentally roasted a major director on Twitter again. But no, this time it was way worse. Apparently the internet had decided we were dating, and not in a cute we ship you way, but in a full trending topic with edits and fan cams way. Someone filmed us at the farmer's market last weekend when he was doing that dumb thing, where he tries to balance peaches on his head and I was yelling at him to stop before he traumatized the fruit. The video blew up. People commented things like, "They're so soft for each other, and I want what they have, and I can't believe they're finally together." And that finally is what really did it for me, because this city is full of D-Lulu energy, but this was next level. I told Kai, "Okay, but we can just clarify, right?" And he gave me that look he uses when he's about to suggest something reckless. He said, "Actually, it might help my career if we don't." I blinked at him because I'd heard some questionable influencer schemes before, but fake dating your roommate wasn't usually on the list. He explained that his YouTube growth had plateaued and casting directors kept telling him he didn't seem relatable enough, but apparently having a public love life makes you very relatable to the algorithm gods. I was about to laugh until he said, "Lena, it could help you too." And that's the part that hit, because I've been an aspiring actor for 3 years, and in that time, I've booked exactly one commercial for an app that no longer exists. Kai said studios love a rising star with a fan base, and I knew he wasn't wrong. LA can smell desperation, but it absolutely adores a romantic storyline, especially one that feels homegrown and chaotic in the way social media eats up. So he asked me to fake date him for 30 days, just a month. Long enough to ride the trend, but short enough that we wouldn't lose our minds or accidentally burn down our friendship. We shook on it more like bumped fists because neither of us ever shakes hands like normal adults, and right after we agreed, something in my chest fluttered. Not fear exactly, but the tiniest spark of, what if this changes more than we planned? But I ignored it because it was probably just caffeine withdrawal. Probably. What would you do if the internet suddenly shipped you with your roommate? The thing about making a fake dating pact with your best friend is that you assume the first day will be chill, maybe awkward but manageable, except ours started with a full-blown photo shoot we never scheduled. I woke up to Kai banging around in the kitchen blender, roaring like a jet engine, and when I shuffled out half asleep, there were ring lights set up, and his camera pointed at the counter like we were filming a cooking show neither of us had agreed to be in. He looked way too cheerful for someone who normally hates mornings. He said, "Good you're up because we need to post something cute today, otherwise people will think the rumors were fake." I just stared at him thinking, well, yes, they are fake, but I guess that wasn't the point anymore. He handed me a smoothie that was suspiciously green and said, "Smile like you're in love." And I almost threw the cup at him, but I didn't, because the lighting actually made my skin look amazing. So we staged this ridiculous moment where he surprised me with breakfast, even though he burned the toast and forgot to put anything in the yogurt bowl except yogurt. But when he wrapped an arm around my waist for the thumbnail, I swear something in me jolted like static electricity, but warm. Friendly, familiar, except also not. We posted the video, and within 10 minutes, the comments were insane. People wrote things like, "The chemistry is crazy and I knew they were dating, and this feels so real." And it should have been funny, but my stomach flipped a little because their excitement felt personal, like we were giving them something they desperately wanted. And maybe I wanted it a tiny bit too, but that was not part of the agreement, so I shoved that thought into a mental drawer labeled, "Absolutely do not open." At noon, Kai said, "Hey, let's take a walk on Melrose, because if people see us together in public, it'll help keep the momentum." I pretended to groan, but I went, because he knows I like the vintage shops, even when everything costs the same as rent. We walked shoulder to shoulder, and he kept brushing against me like he wasn't doing it on purpose, but also absolutely was. And then the moment happened. A girl recognized us. She actually squealed. She said, "Oh my God, are you two dating?" And Kai looked at me with this soft little smile before saying, "Yeah, we are." My heart thudded way too hard for something that wasn't real, or wasn't supposed to be. The girl asked for a photo, and Kai pulled me close again, his hand warm against my back, and the world felt weirdly quiet, like it was just him and me, even with LA noise screaming around us. He didn't look at me like a best friend then. He looked at me like something else, something I wasn't ready to name. On the walk home, he didn't talk much, and the silence felt heavy, like we'd stepped over an invisible line neither of us noticed until it was too late. Do you think Kai is already catching feelings or just acting too well? By day 3, I thought maybe things would chill out a little, but obviously that was delusional, because when have things with Kai ever been chill? I walked into the living room with my hair in a bun and one sock missing, still half asleep, and immediately froze because Kai was practicing lines on the couch shirtless, which he never does around me unless he forgets I exist. And okay, fine. He looked annoyingly good, but that wasn't the point. The point was that seeing him like that made my brain short circuit for a second, and this fake dating thing was definitely starting to fry my emotional wiring. He looked up at me and said, morning in this soft voice, like he'd been waiting for me, and I swear my heart did a weird jump like it was trying to escape my ribs. I mumbled something very smooth, like, "Ha, yeah, okay, whatever," and went to make coffee. I could feel him watching me the whole time, not in a creepy way, in a way that made my stomach feel like it was slowly filling with champagne bubbles. While I tried not to spill coffee everywhere, he said we have to shoot another video today. Something casual, something coupley, maybe a Q&A. And I knew he was right because our follower count had gone up by 40,000 in 2 days, which was insane, but also low-key thrilling. People kept sending us questions like who confessed first and what's your favorite thing about each other. And when's the wedding? I laughed at those, but also maybe not as hard as I should have. We filmed on the couch with a cheap mic between us. The first question was who made the first move, and Kai smirked at me like he was about to cause trouble. He said she did and nudged my knee with his. I blurted I did not, but he kept going, saying, yeah, she totally flirted with me first, and my face got hot, which annoyed me because I don't blush. Ever. Except apparently now. Later that afternoon, he had an audition which he was nervous about, but pretending not to be. I told him good luck like I always do, but when he left, the apartment felt too quiet, too empty, and I hated how fast I checked my phone waiting for his update. 3 hours later, he called saying he nailed it and sounded so proud that I grinned like an idiot. He said he was grabbing tacos on the way home and did I want anything? I said yes, even though I'd already eaten because I liked the way he said on the way home. Like home meant both of us, not just a shared lease. When he finally came back, he handed me my food and then hugged me. A long hug. Longer than usual. His chin rested on my shoulder like it belonged there, and for a second I forgot we were acting. I forgot this was a pact. It felt too real. And I think he felt it too because when he pulled back, he didn't look away. Not immediately. Not like a friend would. Should Lena confront the growing tension or ignore it for now? That night, after the taco hug situation, I barely slept, even though I kept telling myself to get a grip because nothing had changed except everything kind of had. The next morning, the sun was way too bright, and my brain felt foggy, but Kai was in the kitchen humming like he was starring in a musical about making eggs. He smiled at me when I walked in, and I swear that smile hit too hard for someone I'd technically known for 4 years. Like it wasn't new, but also somehow it was. He slid a plate toward me and said, breakfast for my girlfriend, in this casual, teasing voice that was supposed to be a joke, but the word girlfriend lodged itself in my chest like a warm spark. I rolled my eyes dramatically to hide the fact that my brain had just short-circuited. I said, don't say that before coffee, and he grinned, like he knew exactly what he was doing. We had our first fake date outing that afternoon, for content, obviously. We decided on Venice Beach because nothing screams Los Angeles romance like tourists, sunscreen roller skaters, and people loudly selling crystals. We walked hand in hand because that's what fake couples do, and I tried to keep my heartbeat normal, but that was pointless. Kai kept swinging our hands gently like he was actually enjoying it, and he kept glancing at me with that soft half smile that made me want to look anywhere except his face because looking at him felt dangerous. We bought smoothies and filmed a clip where he fed me a piece of mango, which was incredibly stupid and cliche, but people love that stuff. Except I accidentally laughed too hard and mango juice dripped down my wrist and he reached out and wiped it away with his thumb. Slowly. Like way too slowly for a normal friendly oops you're sticky moment. My whole body went warm and bright like a heat lamp had switched on inside me. We sat on the sand after that watching the waves, not talking much. The sky was this muted cotton candy color that made everything feel softer than it should. He kept brushing his knee against mine like he wasn't sure if he should move away or closer. I didn't move either because I didn't actually want space. Then he said something that made me forget how to breathe for a second. Lena, do you ever think about what happens after the 30 days are over? My stomach flipped because I had been thinking about it more than I wanted to admit, but I kept my voice steady. I said, well, we go back to normal, obviously. And he nodded slowly like he heard my words, but not the part under them. The part I was too scared to say. On the drive home, the silence wasn't awkward, but it wasn't comfortable either. It felt charged like we were both thinking the same thing and pretending we weren't. When we got inside, he said goodnight quickly and disappeared into his room before I could say anything else. And the quiet felt louder than ever. Should Lena admit her confusion to him or keep pretending nothing's happening? By the next morning, I told myself I needed to lock it down emotionally because this was getting messy in a way fake dating rules definitely did not cover. I was supposed to be the grounded one between us. Kai is the chaotic YouTuber who accidentally sets towels on fire while filming a shower routine. I'm the one who keeps our apartment from collapsing. So I decided to be normal, chill, unaffected, and obviously the universe laughed in my face. I walked into the living room with a towel on my head, planning to grab my moisturizer and run back to my room, but Kai was already there filming a skincare routine for a brand deal. He saw me and said, perfect timing, babe. Help me with this transition. And before I could protest, he grabbed my hand and pulled me into frame. Babe. He had never called me that before, not even as a joke. My brain didn't love that. It absolutely melted. He told me to stand in front of him, and when he wrapped his arms around my waist for the shot, his breath brushed the side of my neck. I felt it all the way down my spine, like someone had pressed a live wire against me. He whispered, okay, now look at me, and the way he said it made my knees wobble. When I turned toward him, he was already watching me too closely, too softly, too much. We nailed the transition, but the video wasn't the problem. The problem was that neither of us stepped away. His hands were still on my waist. My heart was racing like I'd run a marathon. Neither of us spoke. And then his eyes dropped to my mouth for half a second, half a breath, but enough to send every rational thought flying out the window. He stepped back abruptly like he'd snapped out of a trance. He muttered, sorry, I got carried away. His voice sounded rougher than usual. I said it's fine and tried to pretend my entire soul hadn't just flared up like a house fire. We worked separately for the rest of the afternoon, barely talking. The air between us felt tight, like something had changed in that tiny moment, and neither of us knew how to pretend it didn't. Later, he asked if I wanted to go for a night walk. We used to do that all the time before the pact, so I said sure. The air outside was cool and the city felt quieter than usual. We walked side by side, not touching, but close enough that our hands almost brushed. Almost. Kai finally spoke. Lena, can I ask you something? I said, yeah, trying to sound normal. He looked straight ahead when he said, do you feel weird, like about all this? Because I do, and I don't know what that means. My stomach tightened because it felt like he'd peeled open my brain. I said, yeah, I feel weird too, but I don't know what it means either. We stopped walking, then both of us staring at each other under a streetlight. Something heavy unspoken hung between us, something neither of us was ready to name. Then a car honked and the moment broke. We walked home without saying another word. What do you think Kai meant by weird? Is he catching feelings or scared he is? The next couple of days felt like walking on a tightrope while pretending the ground didn't look terrifying. We filmed a few normal videos. We took a few cute pictures. We acted exactly like a fake couple is supposed to act. Except every time Kai touched me, even casually, even lightly, my whole body reacted like he'd struck a match against my skin. And he noticed. I could tell. He would look at me a second too long. He would swallow hard before pulling away. He would smile at me like he was thinking about something he couldn't say out loud. One afternoon, he told me we needed to post something more intimate, not overly dramatic, just something that felt real enough to keep people invested. He suggested a couch cuddle scene. I laughed because the word cuddle coming from him sounded ridiculous, but he was serious. So I sat next to him on the couch and he gently tugged me to lean against his chest. My face was right over his heartbeat. Fast, warm, distracting. He wrapped an arm around me and breathed out slowly like he was trying to steady himself. We filmed maybe 30 seconds of content, but the actual moment felt longer, thicker, like time slowed down and wrapped around us. When I shifted slightly, his fingers tightened, just a tiny bit on my arm. He didn't have to hold me like that, not for the camera, that was something else. Something I tried not to think about too deeply because if I did, I knew I'd get lost in it. After we finished, he didn't move right away, neither did I. We stayed like that, breathing in sync, and for a second I let my head rest fully against him. He whispered almost too quietly, "You okay?" I nodded, but it felt like a lie. That night, he got invited to a small industry party. Networking, influencers, his usual scene. I offered to go with him because it made sense for the fake dating narrative. He said, "Yeah, come. You should come." And he said it softly like he wanted me there for more than the optics. The party was loud, neon, chaotic. People came up to us and screamed about how cute we were. Someone asked how we met. Kai answered for us, weaving this dramatic, adorable story about me spilling iced coffee on him during our first week in LA, which never happened, but the way he looked at me while telling it made it feel like it could have, or should have. Halfway through the night, he leaned close, so close his lips brushed the shell of my ear and said, "Let's get some air." His voice was low, almost strained. We stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the city. The breeze was cool, and he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. He said, "Lena, this is starting to feel too real." His voice cracked a little unreal. I said, "I know." Because I did. Because we were way past the line already. He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes were searching mine like he wanted me to tell him what to do, like he wanted permission for something. I opened my mouth to speak, but before anything came out, someone called his name from inside, and the moment shattered. Again. Do you think Kai was about to confess something on the balcony? After the balcony almost confession that wasn't really a confession, but definitely wasn't nothing either, my brain wouldn't shut up. The whole ride home felt like sitting in a car made of static electricity. Kai sat beside me, gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary, jaw tight, eyes forward, like he was scared he'd say something if he looked at me too long. I kept sneaking glances at him, trying to figure out what exactly I was hoping for. Answers? A sign? A breakdown? Maybe I just wanted him to reach over and take my hand without thinking. But he didn't. When we got home, he muttered goodnight and went straight to his room. No lingering, no soft smile, no almost moment, just distance. Sharp and sudden, and I hated how empty the hallway felt when his door clicked shut. The next morning, I found him making pancakes, which would have been sweet if he didn't look like he'd slept in a dumpster. His hair was a mess in a way that wasn't the cute, effortless kind. He kept flipping pancakes without actually checking them, burning half of them like his brain was somewhere else entirely. I said, "Rough night?" And he didn't look up when he answered, "Just thinking." Just thinking. About what? Or who? I wanted to ask, but the words got stuck in the back of my throat. He finally looked at me and said, "We need to stay focused on the pact." His voice was careful, too careful, like he'd rehearsed it. He said the audience is expecting more couple content. We can't ease up now. So apparently we were doing the whole pretending everything is normal thing again. I nodded, even though my stomach felt heavy. I agreed because I didn't trust myself to say anything honest. Then he added one more thing. His eyes flicked away like he couldn't say it while looking at me. No more moments. It was barely a whisper, but it hit harder than it should have. I said, "Moments?" With this fake light laugh like I didn't know exactly what he meant. He swallowed and said, "Yeah, like what happened on the balcony or the skincare video or the couch or..." Yeah. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The air between us felt too tight, like we were both pretending we weren't suffocating. We filmed a couple of small clips that afternoon. Cute stuff, funny stuff, easy stuff. Except none of it felt easy. Every time he put a hand on my shoulder or brushed my hair back for a shot or laughed at something dumb I said, I felt that crackle between us. The one we were now actively pretending wasn't there. At one point, he adjusted the collar of my shirt for the camera. His fingers grazed my neck. Just a second. Not even that. But the tiny shiver that ran through me didn't care about time. And his breath hitched. I heard it. He heard it. He froze. I froze. And then he stepped back like the floor burned him. Pretending didn't feel like pretending anymore. It felt like lying, and worse, he was getting good at it. Do you think Kai is pulling away because he's scared or because he's already attached? By the end of the week, the weird tension between us had reached this level where even breathing in the same room felt complicated. We weren't fighting. We weren't even talking less. We were just careful. Too careful. Like every word had to be filtered, every touch measured, every look redirected before it landed somewhere dangerous. But the internet didn't slow down. They wanted more. More affection, more softness, more couple moments. And we'd built this entire thing around giving them exactly what they wanted. So we kept going. One day a brand reached out asking us to film a fully cozy at-home date night. Soft blankets, dim lights, board games, popcorn, 20 minutes of footage that looked romantic but wasn't real. Except maybe it was. We set everything up in the living room. Fairy lights, pillows everywhere. Kai joked that it looked like Pinterest threw up on our couch. I tried to laugh like usual, but even that felt different. Like we were performing a version of ourselves our real selves couldn't quite catch up to. We started filming. I leaned against him. He rested his head gently on top of mine. We played a card game neither of us actually understood, just so we could look playful and cute. At one point, he lost on purpose, obviously, and I laughed, nudging him with my shoulder. He nudged back, then again, and suddenly giggling turned into this light wrestling moment we'd done a million times before. Except this time, the playfulness slowed, shifted. He hovered over me for a second, eyes searching, breath shallow. His hand braced near my shoulder, his face close enough that I could feel warmth rolling off him. I froze. He froze. Every part of the world froze except my heartbeat, which decided to go full drumline. He whispered my name, soft, quiet, barely there, but it still sent the kind of shiver down my spine that fake couples aren't supposed to feel. Then his gaze flicked to my mouth, and my whole body lit up like someone had plugged me into a power source. For one impossible moment, I thought he was going to kiss me. I felt it. Every cell in my body felt it. The universe felt it. But he didn't. He blinked, sat up fast, rubbed his face like he was trying to shake something off. Then he muttered something about needing water and practically fled the room. I just sat there staring at the empty space where he'd been 1 moment earlier, my hands shaking like I'd just run 10 miles, my head spinning because I knew, deep down, that wasn't acting. That wasn't part of the pact. That wasn't for the brand or the fans or the algorithm. That was real. Too real. He didn't come back for almost 20 minutes. When he finally returned, he didn't meet my eyes. He sat next to me, far enough that our shoulders didn't touch anymore. We finished filming, but the footage didn't matter. Nothing felt fake anymore. Not even the lies. Do you think Kai ran because he's scared? Or because he wants it too much? The day after the almost kiss that we're still not talking about felt like tiptoeing through emotional landmines. Everything was stiff and polite, like we were strangers pretending to be ourselves. He made coffee, but didn't hand me my mug like he usually does. I asked about his schedule, but he answered with short, clipped words. We filmed a tiny Instagram story together where he put his arm around me, but it felt like the most forced moment of my life. I hated it. I hated the distance. I hated how badly I wanted to close it. By late afternoon, I couldn't take the tension anymore, so I did something reckless. I said, Kai, we need to talk. He went still like I'd just uttered a forbidden spell. His eyes flicked up, guarded, cautious, soft around the edges like he was terrified of the conversation, but more terrified of avoiding it. He said, talk about what? His voice was thin. I pointed toward the couch and said, sit. He did, but in this wary, slow way, like he thought the furniture might explode. I sat across from him because sitting beside him felt dangerous. Too much warmth, too much familiarity, too much gravity. I took a breath and said, the video last night wasn't fake for either of us. His mouth parted like he was about to deny it, but the words got stuck. He rubbed the back of his neck, looked down, breathed out shakily. He whispered, Lena, I don't know what I'm doing. My heart hammered. I asked, what do you mean? He lifted his gaze, and for the first time in days, he actually looked at me. Really looked. And what I saw in his eyes, fear, hope, longing, confusion, made my chest tighten. He said this was supposed to be easy. We pretend, we help each other, we get attention, and then we stop. But I don't know how to stop wanting things that aren't part of the deal. My breath caught because there it was. Maybe not a confession in clear words, but close. Close enough to send heat rushing up my spine. I said what things? My voice barely worked. He swallowed hard, leaned in slightly. His voice cracked when he answered. You. Okay? You. I want you. I've been trying not to, but it's not working. I swear the entire world stilled. My vision fuzzed at the edges. My pulse moved to my throat. But he wasn't finished. He said, I didn't want to ruin what we have. I didn't want to assume you felt anything back. I didn't want us to confuse the pact with real feelings. But every time I'm near you, it stops feeling fake. And I don't know how to act like it doesn't matter. My heart might have stopped, or sped up so fast it felt still. I whispered Kai, just his name. It was the only word I could manage. He ran a shaky hand through his hair. He said, tell me to stop feeling this way and I will. Just say the word. But I couldn't say it. My silence was its own kind of confession. And he saw it. He definitely saw it. Should Lena tell Kai she feels the same right now? Or wait until she's sure? The silence after Kai's confession felt thick and shimmering like the air right before a summer storm. He waited, absolutely still, like the next thing I said would rewrite the whole script of our lives. My chest ached from holding my breath. My thoughts, usually loud, were strangely quiet. Just one truth pulsed through me. I didn't want him to stop feeling anything. I didn't want distance. I didn't want the fake version anymore. I finally moved, sliding closer to him, and I swear he inhaled like he'd been underwater for weeks. I told him I didn't say anything because talking felt too small for what I'm feeling. His eyebrows twitched the tiniest bit, confusion softening into the beginning of hope. He whispered, you feel something too? Like he was scared to hear the answer, but even more scared not to. I nodded because if I said it out loud, I might fall apart in a very embarrassing, very dramatic rom-com way. But he needed words, so I forced them out. It's not fake to me anymore either. It hasn't been for a while. And pretending it is has been driving me insane. He let out this unsteady laugh, half relieved, half overwhelmed. His shoulders dropped like he'd been carrying something heavy for days. Then he rubbed his palms on his jeans like he needed to ground himself. He said, what do we do now? And honestly, I didn't know. The pact was still technically alive. Our channels were blowing up. Casting directors were DMing. Brands wanted interviews. We had an entire internet believing in this love story we hadn't even dared to have for real. I told him maybe we start by being honest with each other and figure out the rest on the way. He stared at me like the sentence cracked something inside him in the best way. He leaned forward slowly, giving me so much time to pull back. But I didn't. I moved closer too. And then we were kissing. Finally kissing. Like every moment we pretended had been storing energy that exploded all at once. His hands framed my face, my fingers curled into his shirt. Everything felt warm and terrifying and right. When we broke apart, we were both breathless, smiling like idiots. The world outside was still loud, but in that room it felt quiet and new. He said, "Does this mean we're real now?" And I laughed because only he would ask for confirmation after kissing like that. I told him, "Yeah, we're real. No pack, no pretending, just us." He pulled me into his chest, and for the first time in 30 days, I felt calm, safe, seen. Like I'd stepped into the version of my life I'd been too scared to imagine. Later that night, we sat down to film a video. No script, no staged moments, no plan, just the truth. And when we hit record, he took my hand, looked straight into the lens, and said, "We have something to tell you." But before he finished the sentence, he glanced at me and smiled, the softest, realest smile I've ever seen. And that was the moment I knew our entire story was just beginning. Should they keep the relationship public or protect it from the internet for a while?